Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to create some characters in MakeHuman, and we're going to bring them into Blender, and we're going to use a plugin to do that. The plugin works pretty cool because what it'll do is it'll allow us to make modifications between the two programs. So the first thing you have to do is you have to go to makehumancommunity.org and navigate to where they have the plugins. And the plugin we're going to grab is going to be this MakeHuman plugin for Blender. You're going to download that, save it to somewhere where you know it is, and then we're going to fire up Blender. And I just downloaded the newest version today at 2.82. So once that's up and running, what you're going to do is come up here to Edit, Preferences, Install. You're going to browse to where you saved that file. In my case, it's in Downloads. So you scroll down to it, and you can see I downloaded it today. MakeHuman plugin for Blender install add-on, and it should be there. You might have to start Blender over again, restart it, but once you have that done, you should see this up here now. There's tabs on this side, and what you can do is you can hit the N key to make those appear, and over here on the left side you can hit T for your tools if they get in your way. So now that that's running, we'll fire up MakeHuman and we'll create a character. MakeHuman you can get off that site we were just on. So what we'll do is we'll come in here and we'll make a female. We'll drop this down. We'll make it a little younger. We'll give it a little bit more weight. We'll come in here and we might enhance her somewhat. And in the face you can come in. And if you scroll the mouse and use the middle mouse button, you can navigate around. We'll make the head a little bit thinner. Age, we'll make it a little bit younger, and it'll usually have down at the bottom, well, it used to anyways, it would tell you what the ages were. Geometries, we're going to come in here, and this is where you can do clothing and stuff like that. So we'll find something to have her wear, and I'll explain how you can get a lot of these clothing off the MakeHuman community. And we'll do this halter dress. You click on it once and it puts it on her. Okay, and every now and then you'll see a little bit of issues with things, but those can be fixed in Blender. There's a lot you can do. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll have to get her shoes. Another thing you could do under clothing is you can limit the categories of what you're looking for. In this case, we'll say shoes. And we'll scroll down and we'll find some shoes for her to wear. These. We'll give her those. Okay. Come up to eyes. You can have low poly or high poly eyes. It just depends on how close you want to get to something. Usually the lower number of polys on an object the better, but if you need higher resolution, use it. Hair. Come in and pick hair. You just click on something one time to add hair. We'll give it the French braid. Okay, teeth, if the character is going to talk or something, or you need animation, you can put the teeth in. Topologies is kind of important to make it look realistic. We'll do adult female, like that. You can't really see anything, but it did change some of the topology. Eyebrows, I'll give her some eyebrows. We'll give her these. Eyelashes, I'd give her a good bit of eyelashes to make her look feminine. Tongue, if it's going to, again, animate, talk, you're going to do something like that. And then materials is where it makes it look more realistic, the skin color. Right now it's just kind of drab. So you can go through and you can find different skin tones. Middle-aged female, Caucasian. It's a little on the light side, but we'll go with that for now. Pose animate. Now this is real important. Right now there's no bones or any structure. It's just a solid model that don't move. There's all different kinds you can use, and some game engines use them differently. If I'm going to do animations and it's not for a particular game, I just hit default and that loads all the bones in it. But as you can see, there's different bones. Now like this CMU, Carnegie Mellon made a bunch of what they call BVH files. And what they are is they're ways to animate characters like running, stuff like that, you know, walking, dancing, jumping. We'll use these for right now, but most of the time I end up using the default ones. There's a lot more control, but we'll use these for right now. Okay, so we have that character. And again, you could go in and you could pose it different ways for now. Expressions, you could have them, you know, have different expressions on their face and stuff like that. Okay, so we have that running. Now we're going to go back to Blender and we're going to hit this button, import human, and after a few seconds it'll bring the human in that we made in there, and this will interact back and forth between the two of them. Okay, now let me look at some of my notes over here. Oh yeah, one thing I do like to do, this is the armature the way it came in. Now we're in object mode. You have object mode, edit mode, where you can edit and move things around. This you don't usually want to touch when you're going to pose a character because it can screw things up. But there are times you will need it. Pose mode, we're going to click on that. That means we can come in here. If we click, we can actually pose the character by rotating stuff. But one thing I like to do, it's a little harder to see, is I like to come in here and then in the display, and my gizmos are in the way here, and I come down here and change the wire to octahedral, and it gives it a bones just like we had in MakeHuman. So you can see the bones all correlate correctly. So we have that. Now if you want to do some kind of little simple animation, this is the simple, just to show you the basics of how this kind of stuff works. The mesh, the skin more or less, is tied to the bones by what they call weight. When this bone moves, it pulls the vertices as it moves based on strength. And when you do weight painting, well, we'll come into here. I'll just show you this real quick. We'll come in, we'll grab that, and we'll do weight paint. Now you see how there's different colors? That's where you could actually influence how much you want the bones in that to move. We're going to get rid of that because we don't want to mess it up. Okay, but now with that in mind, that's what you're going to do. You're going to move the bones, and it's going to move the skin, the mesh, based on that. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here, and you see how the cursor turned into an X. The one neat thing about Blender is you can make a bunch of different panels or viewports. Like that one there. That's not actually what I wanted to do, but that's kind of good because I'll show you how to fix that. What you do is when you have that happen and you make two the same you don't want, you right click, you mouse over to where you get a double arrow, you right click and you do join areas. And you'll see an arrow go up and down. And you click on it and it makes one panel again. What I wanted to do was grab here and drag down. Then I wanted to come over here to the timeline. I want to make a timeline. I can make all these different panels. I'm going to come in here to the timeline. Now, I want to be in pose mode. So I want to make sure I grab the armature. When I grab the armature, I come into pose mode. And I'm going to hit the A key and grab all of the bones. Now you can pose each individual bone, whatever. Now I'm going to click I to insert a keyframe, and in this case I'm going to use the location and the rotation. Since I'm not doing any scaling, I want to get the like XYZ coordinates of the bone. So click on that and we have that. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to move it to some other frame. Now we're going to go to, we'll say 40 frames. I think this thing runs at about 30 frames a second, so that's going to be a little over a second. Then what we'll do is we'll grab, and I'll also want to go from front view, so I'll hit the 1 key on the numpad and that'll bring me to the front. And then I'll hit the period key to bring up the bone. It'll focus in on that bone. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate that bone down. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to grab this bone, I'm going to rotate that bone down. And I'm going to grab both of those bones, or I could select all the bones. And then I'll hit the I key again. And then I'll do location and rotation. So what that did is it recorded the position for those two bones. Now if I scrub the timeline or play it back, you can see her hand moving like that. You can also come up here and hit the play button and see it move down. That's about how long it would take. Now our frames typically end at 250. That's just the default value. You can make it whatever you want. If you only wanted to make this last for 60 frames, about 2 seconds, you can come up here and type in 60 and you can see it'll do that. And if we were to render it, we would get that much of an animation. And you can always change it later on. Now, another thing you can do is, since we did that keyframe there, we could do the same thing. We could come up to let's do this. Let's come up here and let's grab the neck and we'll set a keyframe for that. Location, rotation. Now what we'll do is we'll scrub ahead to maybe 100, and now we still have the bone selected. I'm going to rotate it on the Z-axis, which is up and down, and I'll move my mouse to like here, and then I'll hit I again and I'll do location and rotation. So now what we'll have is her with her arms up, coming down, head turn. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the end frame 100. So we have 100 frames of animation. Okay, now let me come over to my notes again. We'll set this up for animation. We'll do a little animation. I'll show you how this works. Come up here, I want to use the GPU, and I'm using the Cycles engine because that's what I like to use. There's Eevee, that's the newer engine, and it works really cool, but there are little things you need to know about that, so we're just going to go with the Eevee. Okay, some other things. The size of the animation. We're going to come down to here, and this is where you set the size of the animation. Mine default is 1024 by 1024. You can make it whatever size you want. Another thing too is this percentage. Now I don't want a really big animation for right now to show you how this is going to work, so we'll do 50%, which is going to be 512 by 512. We're also going to come down here to the output. This is where it's going to output the movie. Now you can make individual images with transparent background with this RGBA. That A is for alpha, that's the transparency. But what we're going to do is we're going to make a video. We're going to come up here and we're going to click on that. We're going to make the MPG or an MKV video. We're going to do that. And then another thing we want to do is I want to make a transparent background in case I want to overlay this video of just her onto something. So I would come back up to here and I would go under film, and then there is a toggle down here of transparent. So that makes it transparent. So now the next thing to do would be render animation, and there's shortcuts that I use all the time, F12, Control F12. So we're going to click on that and our animation should start. I think I did something wrong here, so hang on, bear with me. Yeah, I didn't give it a movie name. I think that's what the problem is. So we'll say movie 1. And then we'll come up here, render animation. Still not it. It was rendered in the background. I just didn't realize that it was actually doing that. It was just taking longer than I thought. So what I'm going to do is let it render, and when it's done we'll come back to it.